So good afternoon and welcome to the fourth annual forum for open research in MENA. I will be glad to share this session G, titled Building Open Science Community, building open science communities. We will be waiting for 5 minutes to make sure that all our attendees have joined us, and then we will move forward with housekeeping and um, our presentations. Thanks a lot. So thanks for waiting, and thanks again for joining us. Welcome to the fourth annual forum for open research in MENA. I'm again glad to share this session G, titled Building Open Science Communities. Before moving forward with our presentations, let's recap about the following points. Zoom has a feature of movable winds. You can move the winds of the Zoom so you can work on something in parallel. You can use the option raise your hand so you can draw our attention for any challenges or any issues in the background. You can use the option of the chat in order to share your ideas, your comments, and you can use the option of the Q&A in order to ask uh, questions about the presentation. We will have 30 minutes for each presentation. We will have four presentations. Each presentation will have 30 minutes, 20 minutes for the presentation itself, and 10 minutes for the question. You are encouraged to share your questions. The program of the forum can be accessed as shown in in the in the slide available now. Can be accessed in both languages, English and Arabic, using these QR codes, so you can have an idea about the dates and times of the rest of the presentations. Our sessions G, titled Building Open Science Communities, includes four presentations, as I have mentioned. The first one is Advancing Open Science Communities in South Asian through Regional Collaboration and Diplomacy. It will be presented by Dr. Pragya Chowbi and Dr. Mumita Kuli. Dr. Pragya Chowbi is a science policy professional with research interest in open science, data governance, and equitable access to research. Her work focuses in inclusive participation in science, with a special emphasis on genomics, AI, open data, and vulnerable communities. She has worked extensively at the intersection of science, technology, and society, including at the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, Center for Policy Research, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and UNESCO share in community-based research and social responsibility in higher education. She co-chairs the CoData Connect Open Science Monitoring Initiative and is co-founder of the Open Science South Asian Network. She is presently working as an assistant professor at UPES University in India. Dr. Mumita Kuli, Indian Institute of Science, is a leading voice in science policy and meta science in India. She holds PhD in organic chemistry from the Vienna University of Technology, Austria, where her research focused in synthesizing small molecules to direct the differentiation of pluripotent stem cells toward heart muscle cells. Transitioning from the lab, her interest evolved towards exploring the structure and the evolution of science itself. Now in dual positions as a senior research analyst at DST Center for Policy Research, IISc Bangalore, and a research fellow at the Research on Research Institute, RORI, in UK. Her work focuses on advancing the accessibility of scientific knowledge, fostering an efficient and responsible research ecosystem, and promoting research that responds to local needs. She has authored many research papers and news uh, paper articles on these topics. Mumita serves on the steering committee for DORA, representing Asia, the IAU Open Science Expert Group and is editor of the Open Knowledge section of Katina Librarianship Elevated and is part of the 2025 Open Access Week Advisory Committee. She worked as a consultant with the International Science Council on the Future of Scientific Publishing project from 2023 until 2024. Nice bio, Dr. Momita. Mike is yours.
Uh, Thank you, Ahmed, for such an elaborate bio of both of us. Unfortunately, my colleague Pragya probably won't be able to join, as I already mentioned. She's other part of the world where now it's very late night for her to join this. But I will try to talk about the initiative that we have started and what we are doing to promote open science in South Asia. So let me share my screen. I
Yes.
hope my screen is shared and right now in full screen. And yes, thanks again. And yes, I think it's a good afternoon because I think it's afternoon for all of us at this point, both in MENA and also in India, from where I am talking. So, as already mentioned, that I will talk about that the kind of initiative that we have taken, of course, as an individual and voluntary level in India to take forward the open science agenda. And our goal is to bring more regional collaboration in science and using science diplomacy as tool to make the scientists come much more closer. And since this year's open access week's theme is who owns our knowledge. So I will talk a little bit about knowledge sovereignty when we discuss the open access. Probably right now it's also a very important point when we talk about that is who owns the knowledge that we are creating. So that's how my presentation will have two parts. First part, I will talk in general about the open science and as well as what we can do together to take the open science agenda forward. And the next part will be a little bit more focused on a little bit on a technical issue of which will have this overlap with the theme of this year's open access week. That is who owns our knowledge. And yeah. So since we are starting the session, so I thought it will be good also to revisit that why did we started to discuss the open science, why open science has become such an important agenda for UNESCO, and why all of the countries also had signed the UNESCO recommendation on open science. Maybe I will be reiterating the points that has been discussed quite few maybe in the and probably also will be discussed in this MENA form program, but still I guess it's important that we revisit this. And I think that discussion on open science possibly started with the discussion of open access because it's been quite some time now when we saw that specifically the countries where we have much less resources and there is a huge barrier in accessing the resources because when journals were mostly on the subscription based model, most of the libraries in the world in global south and many others as well was not been able to afford subscribing all the journals that were available. Forget about all, there will be really very fractions of journal that we could have. So that's why there was the challenges of accessing the knowledge that we are creating using the science. Then there was another issue that started to come up even more prominently is that research data. We are doing science and we are generating a huge amount of data, but the data is somewhere in the lab notebook of the researchers, and only a fraction of it is published in the supporting information file, and that file is is in such a format that it is not at all useful when you want to do reproduce the same results. So the discussion of making the research data open in a fair format that is findable, interoperable, accessible, and and reusable came up. That okay, we, since we are now in a digital era, we can do a lot more with research data. Then I think in recent past another issue of research assessment came up as well, because with publishing too much, uh, there were metrics that has been created such as citation count, H index, which are not as really that as a bad metrics, but the way it is now being used is really detrimental for science system. And overall now we are in a situation where all the researchers face a huge pressure to publish more and more. And finally is that we are, for whom we are doing, for the society, we are doing a society science for the society. Yes, we are doing science for creating new knowledge, but we also expect that a lot of this knowledge will also be useful for the society, if not today, at least tomorrow. But instead of that, the motto of science become doing science but not thinking about why and for whom we are doing it. Sorry, I missed it on a slide. So let's have a look into this graph that shows. Just now I talked about how subscription was becoming a problem in accessing knowledge, but to counter that, there was the discussion of open access, that all the knowledge that we generate, all the papers that is then published should be accessible freely to everyone. And to make that, what publishers started to do is a model called gold open access model, and for that they started to charge something called article processing charge, which becomes so much huge that it's in now in billions. In yearly, there are billions of dollars get spent on from the researchers' pocket towards APC. And look, one of the Nature, of course, the flagship journal, charges APC of more than 9,000 euro. I mean, imagine only so few researchers can actually be able to publish in this journal. So the crisis that we had started to encounter now proliferated into another different direction. Previously, it was just to how you can read, now how you can publish, because both the avenues are getting blocked for many researchers across the world. So, I think another important issue right now we should not be avoiding is the discussion on research integrity. Because with so much of publishing, with so much of papers being published, the peer review system is almost broken, because we don't have so much of peer review or to really scrutinize. So now the system is flooded with very bad quality papers, and now with the LLM models, with the AI agents, people can now very easily generate a paper which has no scientific value, or which are even can be completely wrong, and that can be published, and that will be then indexed and counted. And that's why we are now in this era where research integrity is a huge issue. And recently one researchers has developed this research integrity index, as you say, Professor Lukman Meho. And this is interesting. I mean, this is of course as an indicative measure, but still we cannot avoid looking into it. And in my country, India, it's quite features quite badly in many, quite a few universities in this, in our region has a risk of, is in this integrity risk, that is this red flag one, where very clearly they are publishing papers which are really bad quality. And so also like in Middle East, in the MENA also, there are quite many universities which is in that red region, that they are publishing is the papers which are really not scientifically authentic. So I can summarize this that okay, it's with few example. What I'm trying to say that is, yes, there are problem in science system. We have wrong incentive, we have misplaced priorities. Now, how do we do this course correction? And for that itself, the open science recommendation came up. If you can see that, for example, open access, open data, open evaluation, open notebook, citizen science, all of these concepts which are there in this recommendation is actually is would be important to address the challenges that just now I mentioned. And does open science really helps? Of course, right now we have few examples that shows yes, it has the potential to really help the science system to go in the right direction. Look at this example gene bank. So this is the comprehensive public database of nucleotide sequences with biological and bibliographic data. And what you can do, because of this is a free open and data set on the genomic data set, then people can do a lot of research using this is data. It can and this gene bank shows that how open data can accelerate discovery and innovations in life science. Another one is a citizen science example, Universe, which is the world largest platform for citizen science projects across fields like astronomy, ecology, and history. And so it is not just for scientists, it's for the general normal citizen as well, who are interested in science can take part and take scientific knowledge forward. And in the process, they will also learn what exactly is science, what is scientific methodology, what is scientific rigor. That's how the public trust on science can also be built. Now, coming to the topic that we are very much interested in today's discussion is that why do we need networks to take open science agenda forward? Of course, increase reach, because as a individual, what you can do, that can be multifold. If you have a network and you can have that effect, and then each region has its own specific challenges in their science system. And this networks in the region can actually look into the challenges in their own region, and then of course also collaborate with the other regional efforts and make open science a reality. And then of course this can be a science diplomacy tool to make scientists of different countries come together to work on problems that is region specific. And we have quite a few examples, good example like Claxo in Latin America, then African Open Science Platform, Riddleic, Taxo, Riddleic has already showed that how they are taking open access agenda forward using Diamond Open Access model. And Open African Open Science Platform, though it's in a way quite new, and but still it started to show the multiple good effect of having such networks. And taking inspiration from this initiatives, we thought that maybe we need something in South Asia. One of uh, a lot of people live in this region. There are a lot of scientific activities going on, but hardly much to do with the focused on regional challenges. And so that's why we had launched this. Of course, it's a very voluntary effort, and just apart from our day job, we started to do it. And we got a small funding as well for this. And then the first activity, we did quite a few activity after launch in 2022. It's that Open Science Conference where we had participants from most of the South Asian countries. We discussed the agenda, Open Science agenda, how scientists of South Asia can work together beyond their boundaries, countries' boundaries. And then, of course, we had several workshops. Then we discussed also various issues in open science. We started to do capacity building workshop with UNESCO chair. We developed quite a few training modules, and as MOOC and UNESCO, it is hosted in UNESCO Jakarta platform. And another interesting initiative that we had started is a dialogue on genomic data, because in the South Asian community there are many indigenous people, and they have hardly not much idea about it when their genetic data is taken. So we need to know more about something called care principles. So we started to make people aware what is care principle. Also another kind of capacity building that we did is with Sri Lanka on scientometrics. So how to measure the bibliometrics and scientometric parameters for various scientific activities. So now I come back to the next part of my presentation is, as I told, that this week's theme, Open Access Week theme, is who owns our knowledge. So possibly we should discuss a little bit more about this particular topic and why this is important, because see that every year we are publishing so much of papers. This is just the all from the journals that are only indexed as Web of Science, as you see in this graph, and it is increasing. 800,000 papers each year. You can see how it has increased, and now China publishes so much more, US of course in the second position, India in the third position. So all these countries are publishing a lot of papers, And then the question is that first, of course, we have discussed the point of how to access this knowledge, but then who owns the knowledge as much? First, I will just quickly show the open access data. Just have a look into it. These are the top 20 countries in globally in publishing papers. And this yellow line shows that how much of their papers for each country is open access. So that you can actually, for example, in Netherlands, you can almost 80% of their papers are somehow accessible, some way or other accessible openly, freely, so you can read that. Whereas in India, which is among the top 20 knowledge producing country, but very few, it's less than 40% is openly accessible. And even and this data is not so good for China as well. So China, though publishing a lot of papers, the knowledge that they are creating is not really openly accessible to the world. However, China has taken up initiative and they are really paying a lot of APC now to make the paper open access. Now, quickly, want to show you that in this open access, what are the different kind of model that exist. So, for example, Netherlands, a lot of their papers is available through gold or hybrid gold. That is another pay by APC model. So they're paying a lot of APC. Only few is the green open access, and there are some few free to read. So, but for each and country, taking together this gold and yellow and brown, you will understand that people are paying a huge amount of APC to make the paper open access. So I showed that in this different kind of models, but then in this, who owns the knowledge? That was the point of the discussion. Who owns the knowledge? Because see, most of the gold journal, yes, you don't have to transfer copyright transfer, so the knowledge does not belong now to the publishers. They just publish it, and usually it is licensed under CC BY, which means that anybody can use or reproduce the knowledge, providing a reference to the original one. Whereas in the subscription model, it is not so. And green open access, the challenge is that there's a long embargo. But still, there are a lot of papers which are still under the subscription model. So a lot of journals still are in hybrid or subscription model, and their user, in that case, researchers have to actually transfer their copyright to the publishers, and most of the publishers then publish the content under CC BY NC ND, which is a very restrictive license. What is the problem if we have such kind of licensing policies? Is because then publishers, when you actually sign this copyright transfer, then the publishers become owner of the knowledge, and now they have the free hand to sell it as well. Though it is your creation, your knowledge, publishers can very easily sell it to AI companies. For example, these are the two news. These are 2024 in news that publishers are selling the content to the AI companies. And that's where the question comes. As a researcher, I have done my research, and because of the norm, I had transferred my copyright, and publishers did not even ask me whether I want to make my content available for AI training or not. They're just making double money from the whole content. I think I have talked about this licensing, and this is a slide which I had made to show what are the different licensing mean. The CC BY, of course, as I said, that users can use it, just doing a credit to the original creditor, and CC BY NC ND is like in no derivative and non-commercial. So, but the publishers then selling this content for the commercial use. So there is a lot of questions and clutter in these areas, which really, as a researchers, we need to understand, and that is where the community practices comes in. As a researcher community, not just as a regional, but in the global, we really now have to think about how to own our own knowledge. And for that, what you can do is this. This is something as in our OSAN collaboration, and also with collaborating with MENA form, we want to spread this information that as a researcher, You must always put your paper in the preprint until unless you want to do a patenting or something for your, but whichever you have a sole motivation of publishing a paper, please start from the preprint. Then you can submit, and then all the process that happens in a journal publication. And when you have that final accepted version, then please put it in a repository, institutional repository. And of course, the publisher's version with all the typesetting will go to publisher website. Though there is a little bit of challenge and ambiguity in this. What is the final accepted version? Because this is where research publishers put an embargo that you probably have to wait for at least 1 to 2 years before you put it in institutional repository. So this is another areas where we need more attention as well as more or capacity building among the researchers to understand these steps. And why I told that it is very important that we put our papers into institutional repositories where we have a control also that our knowledge does not go or disappear. So, for example, you see this article in Nature that so many DOIs, when you click onto it, it does not exist. So that means the paper would not exist. It's somewhere in the dark. And this is an example of another interesting case for a chemistry journal which disappeared, which is a quite famous journal for chemistry. And because of certain and changes, for quite a few months, all the papers, all the archival of this important journal was completely disappeared. So of course that's how I want to end this, that please think about how to retain the right, don't transfer the copyright to the publishers. So as a community, we need to figure this out, how to retain our right. Then of course go for this green open access mode that is in the institutional. And another important way is that we really need to look for the alternative. And Diamond OA journals, I'm sure in the MENA form there are quite few Diamond open access journal which is free to publish, free to read, and supported by the community. We need to have more such kind of journals so that we are not completely dependent on the mercy of commercial publishers. And with that, I end, and this is here. Please save the date because from 2nd to 6th February 2026, there will be the Global Diamond Summit. This is the third Global Diamond Summit. Last year it was in Cape Town, the year before it was in Mexico, this year it will be in India. And I invite people to join this endeavor, community endeavor to take Diamond Open Access forward. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the insightful presentation, Dr. Mumita. It's very interesting to highlight the importance of owning the rights of the knowledge. This is something very, very, very important. The authors are the original owners of this knowledge, and they should retain this copyright in order to be available for their peers, their colleagues, and so the development and I think the evolving of the community. Uh, I believe it's an important message because the role of the publishers in terms of the various open access models um, controls what's happening in the community. So we will go through the Q&A questions. Q&A questions. If anyone has any question, please share in the Q&A section. I would like to encourage the attendees to share their questions in the Q&A section. Okay, so thanks a lot again, Dr. Mumita. I believe that uh, if uh, if there is any question appears, so it will be forwarded to you for your action. Now we will go to presentation number 2, The Power of Open Science Communities by Miriam Welbot, International Network of Open Science and Scholarship Communities. Dr. Miriam Welput is a board member of the International Network of Open Science and Scholarship Communities and a co-founding board member of the Open Science Community Amsterdam. She works as a data steward at SciLife Lab, Uppsala University, working to advance open science in life sciences. Previously, she was a research and educational advisor at Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences, where she contributed to shaping the institution's open science guidelines. Nice to have you, Dr. Mariam. The mic is yours.
Thank you so much for this really nice introduction, Ahmed. And I'm really happy and delighted that I'm able to present here. I will share my screen to see that you can all see my presentation. Can you all see my presentation here?
Yes.
One second, myself. So, welcome everyone to my presentation about the power of open science communities. I'm really happy to be here, specifically because I'm from the Netherlands, from a small country in Europe, and I'm really happy that I was allowed to join here, even though it's specifically for the MENA region. But we work and collaborate together with people in this region, so I'm therefore grateful to be here. I will first tell a little bit about myself as a background, even though I already got a nice introduction. As Ahmed already said, I'm chair of INOS, the International Network of Open Science Communities. And what we do is we try to bridge boundaries of open science by connecting researchers from all regions in the world together. I work at SciLife Lab in Sweden. It's a national infrastructure in life sciences where we advance on open science. And I'm originally from the Netherlands, where this network of open science communities started in a small university town in 2018, where they started with it, and then it's grown and expanded to a national network, and soon after that into an international network. So this is a little bit about me. I would like first to tell a little bit more about our network, and after that go deeper in why open science communities are so important and why community work is so helpful in advancing open science. And I will finish with a few practical tips in how you, if you have a community or if you want to start up a community, how you can promote yourself and how you can actually be an active group to connect all the resources and to do the work together. So at the moment, our international network consists of people and researchers from 27 different countries all over the world, mostly in Europe, Africa, and the Americas, and not so many in Asia, but maybe Mumita we can connect afterwards to see what we can do in Asia as well. We have at the moment more than 50 communities and in total around 3,000 members. And to make it a bit more visual for you, this is the map of Europe, where it started. In the left corner, you see the Netherlands. It started in 2018 with a community in Utrecht. And in the 2 years after that, in 2020, we had communities at every university. And around the same time, a few other communities popped up all over Europe with the same sort of idea. And we decided to connect with each other and combine the names and all call each other open science community, plus the letter from the city or country where we're in, so that we are looked like one big united organization with local chapters and communities to work together. So soon we had more and more in Europe, but not only Europe, also in this region actually. And the open science community in South Saudi Arabia was one of the first actually, besides a few in Europe in 2020 who started. And nowadays, in 2025, we have all over the world communities. And in the MENA region, we have the open science community in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, and Iraq. And soon we will also start up a community in Morocco. And this morning, there was already a presentation from the other communities in the MENA region. Maybe some of you went there. I wasn't there, unfortunately, because the whole presentation of them was in Arabic. But maybe some of you were there to already hear a little bit about their local work, what they're doing. And as an international community of communities, our bigger goal is to have a growing collaborative network and to support all the local communities to thrive and to grow. And as you see in the picture, this is the picture of the globe, and every own local community has their own colors. We have all the same logo, but different colors to see that we all united, but at the same time that you can be unique and you have all your local things, you have local challenges, local things that you can excellence in. And together, the idea is that these communities can support each other. If there's a new community starting up, that they can learn from the communities that already exist, and so let our network grow. And by this, we would like to have a rich diversity of open science communities sharing our ideas or knowledge, and we use the successful formats that already are there. But it's nice and all that we have open science communities, but why are communities so important? And all over the day, I heard already several sessions where people were talking about communities and why that is so important, and how communities can help to make the connection between the local researchers and the local people, citizens, with the more policy groups. So I hope for some people it already got to knowledge that it's important to have communities. But if you look to our open science local communities, what we say is that open science communities are there for newcomers to learn from experienced peers, that we can connect with more bigger institutions, stakeholders and policies because we're also united, and that there are also places where academia and society can meet, interact and co-create. So actually our vision and mission is that the norms and practices that are in academia, they are more shifting towards open science. And we all know open science becomes more and more a standard thing, but open science is not the norm yet. Even though we can say there's no doubt that open science is actually the way forward to make science more available for everyone. And what we believe is that research community itself is best suited to lead the change, those who put open science to practice. So not the policymakers and not the infrastructure people, but the researchers themselves, who then can locally bottom up as grassroots organizations, that they are crucial in the transition. Because these communities, they engage and enable academics to make their workflow more open, to allow them to articulate opportunities and obstacles they experience, to policymakers and to their maybe the other people in their university who are more higher up. And also as a security system that researchers can help other researchers and that they are there together to help each other. And we believe that these local bottom-up communities, that they're crucial in the transition to work more towards open science. And shortly you can say for researchers, by researchers. That's what we stand for. But how does open science in general actually become the norm? Because at the moment, open science is becoming more and more interesting, but it's not the norm yet that everyone works like open science. And if you think about the transition to open science, I always refer to this pyramid. And some of you have been already this morning to the presentation of Sarah Lippincott, and she also mentioned this pyramid. So for some people, it might be sort of double information. But in this pyramid, you can see that there are a lot of steps to get to the norm for open science. It first needs to be possible actually to work through open science. There needs to be infrastructure. It has to be easy. It has to have a good user interface. Then it should be the norm where communities come in. Then it also has to be rewarding. And at the end, it has to be required with policies. And a lot of people are talking about all the infrastructure that we need to have, because otherwise it's not possible. And then really quickly, the step is made to policy. We need to have policy so that people work with this infrastructure. But this middle part, the communities, are quite often overlooked. And if you have a pyramid and you take away the middle part, it will all collapse. So the communities are actually this middle part that is crucial to connect the infrastructure and the policies and to make sure the ideas we all have, that they actually become reality and that it works in practice. And the next slide is a combination of this pyramid. So please remember the pyramid. And I combined it together with another well-known picture or graph actually. What you see here, this sort of bell form, shape actually, is the innovation adoption life cycle, also Rogers Bell's curve. And Brian Nosek, a well-known researcher from America who also started up the open science framework in America, he actually came with the idea to combine these two things to actually showcase more how actually the transition to open science work. And if you see, you can see the parts of the pyramid, you see them at the bottom line under the bell. You see the different people, different phase of an innovation. You go from innovators, early adapters, the majority, late majority, and then the laggards. And to make it more visual for you, I will go this step by step through because I think this is really important to understand the whole idea of how things are working. So as the first thing, if you want to have a new idea, in this case, open science, it needs to be possible. It needs to be infrastructure. And if you think of not even that long ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago, there was no internet at all. And even now in some places in the world, internet is not always there working so well. And sometimes there are times that the internet is not so working great, and sometimes it works really well. And if there's no internet, then it would never be open science. So it needs to be possible. And over the years, there became a lot of tools and different apps and other things. And you can see here millions of things that they have to make open science possible, to make sure that we can share our data and also all the other research outputs. And these people, they're the innovators. Innovators are the people who work with infrastructure, who think like they're interested in it, and the people who say, no matter if there is no infrastructure, we just build it ourselves. No matter if it harms my career, I just go for it. That's a really, really tiny group of people. Then you get the early adapters. Those are the people who are interested in new things. They're curious, they want to learn new things. They're thinking like, oh, open science might be nice, but it has to be easy. For them, it's important to have good user interface, to make guidelines, to make sure that they know how to work with it and that there's step-by-step plans. But then you have had the innovators and the early adapters, but still you're on the left side of this like ball or curve. And the biggest change, so the most difficult part, is actually to go from the early adapters to the early majority, to get the big group of people with. And that is actually in every innovation, every transition, that is the hardest part. How do you make sure that the big majority of researchers, of people, really get into open science and think, yes, this is what we do, this is the norm. And to make something the norm, to make it normative, then the communities play a really big role in that. Because how you make things the norm, it's people, they all look to others. People are a little bit like sheeps, I would say. If one sheep starts something, then all the others go. So in that sense, the community itself is really important. And to achieve this mainstream adoption, there are two things really important. What you can do as a researcher, you can have direct influence by talking to your colleagues about open science principles, support your colleagues who are new into this, to say to them how to work with this, to show them that it's easy and that they are also able to do that. And on the second hand, it's also the indirect influence by being visible, by showing this is the norm, this is what I'm doing, this is what my colleagues is also doing. And by showcasing that more and more people are working according to the open science principles, it becomes the new norm. And this is not an easy thing to do, but this is an essential part. And if you're over this big like hop or like difficult mountain, when you have the early majority and also maybe part of the late majority, to make sure that this actually is going to work, this transition, you also need to have incentives that makes it rewarding. And that part, the COARA, for instance, comes in place to look at research assessments, because you can have a lot of really enthusiastic researchers who also tell their colleagues about it. But in the end, if you don't get time and money from your university to work like open science, and if it's really difficult to do, then in the end, it will not get there, because you also need to be rewarded. You need to have some time to actually work like that. And in the end, only at the end, when it's rewarding and you get like a lot of enthusiastic people and it's possible, then at the end, then comes actually the policies. That's for the laggards, the people really, really against it, who really don't wanna. Is it obligated? Then they will work with it anyway in the end. And that's like, for instance, the UNESCO recommendation, who can help shape these policies or local policies. But quite too often we go directly from infrastructure to the policies and make things like obligated, well, actually we don't have the community with us, the community who is not interested yet. So this part where the communities comes in are so super important. And that's why I'm also super happy to have so many presentations all over the day to also emphasize the importance of communities. So thank you for all that already, to have a startup work for my presentation beforehand. But what more practically, what communities actually do to make open science normative? And here I will give you some practical tips. But before giving the tips, I just want to go with you over what a community actually is. Because we can have a lot of different ideas about what a community is. And in my case, in this story, a community, that's a dynamic social grouping where members align around a shared purpose. They have an idea of what they want to get, in this case, the open science. It's also important that these people who are in the community have a sense of belonging, that you feel like, okay, I'm part of this, and we have an active group of people who frequently see each other and feel they belong there. And the last thing is that it's important is that there are connections, that the people who are in this community feel connected, and that they also feel that they won't be able to do it on their own, and that this connection is important to make the things go forward. And if you have a shared purpose, a sense of belonging and connections, then actually action can happen. And this definition comes from the Center of Scientific Collaborations and Community Engagement. So if you want to know more about community work in scientific world, then you can, I would like to refer you to them. Here I already showed a little bit. This is like, with this in mind, we have for open science communities or local communities. And we believe that this will help. And the network, the international network, is the way to connect all the different communities. In case of time, I will keep this a bit shortly, but if you want to know more about our network, you can always look at our website. I would like to give you a few short practical tips, because I know that after conference, it's always nice to have some practical information. So if you already start up a known community, or if you want to make a local community, that's all nice and all, but how could you promote this? How could you make sure that researchers are more seen by the local people and by the university board and by everyone? So one of the first thing I always say is, if you have an open science community, make sure that you're visual, because if we're visible, then it also shows that open science becomes more the norm. So for instance, you can have a website where every member of your communities is online, and that you also say what sort of interest in part of open science they have and where they have experience in, so that you can also find the right people to help you out if you're a beginner in open science. For instance, you can use different social medias, for instance, like Slack or Zulip or whatever you have in your region, to work to connect with each other, so that you feel like this sense of belonging in your community. Make sure that you're visual and promote yourself by using different sorts of merchandises. It helps to have active working sessions where you can all work and share ideas. You can, for instance, have award sessions where you showcase one or two people who are really, really good in open science as a showcase of like, this is how it can be. But also, like, when you have these local communities, it's also important to show it's not a threshold. Everyone can work with open science. That's not too difficult. And be part of different festivals, like here, this MENA, the Forum Conference in MENA region, or in the Netherlands, we have different festivals around open science. Whatever there is according to open science, just join and give presentations, show that you're there. And another thing I would like you to help out with, like, it's nice if you promote yourself, but the difficult thing often is to influence the policy. So how could you do that? So I would like to give an example from the Netherlands. I know we're a really, really small country in Europe, and that's far away from you. But we are lucky that open science is like on the forefront at our universities and at our science. And therefore, I want to give the example that we have in the Netherlands, that we actually have a national program on open science. And at the moment they were starting up this national program, they actually went to the different open science communities, because we were united and we had them at every university, and asked us to the as researchers, like, we want to collaborate with you. What can we do to make open science a success in the Netherlands? And because they connected with us as researchers, they could ask what we needed to make sure how we could work with that. And in the end, they had a rolling agenda for the Open Science program. And you can see horizontal 4 different research lines or topics they want to work on. And in the vertical lines, you can see that the 5 different stages of the pyramid where we talked about before, that they're actually part of this policy, that they say for every line of research topic we have, we want to have infrastructures, we want support and training, we want to have community engagement, recognition and awards, and policy and regulations. And because this is in the agenda and in the rolling, within the topics, community engagement is actually acknowledged, and there was also in the end money for the community engagement. So in that case, that the communities have money to actually increase their visibility, to help each other out, to connect. I mean, this is a really nice picture, and it's not always like that. And I know how difficult it is to get in contact with policy and with developers and these kind of places. But it just as an example, I want to show you that it is possible if you unite as a research community, that you can be part of that, and that you then also can help to make open science the norm, because we actually need the researchers themselves to show that this is an important part. So to finish this presentation and my sort of emphasis on how to do all these things, my take-home message for you guys is: INOS, the International Network of Open Science and Scholarship Communities, we unite the local open science communities and we support them. The open science communities in themselves are super important to make sure that open science becomes the norm. And I hope my practical tips to promote your own open science community or to start one up, and the ways how you can influence policies, give you some inspiration. As last, a little bit of promotion. Take action, start your open science community. Do you want to know more about how to do that? Check our website, startyourosc.com, or go to INOSC website. And we also have a really nice incubator program. It's a program for 14 weeks online that can help you to start up a community and also make sure that it's more sustainable over time. And we have at the moment not a new enrolled program, but there will be one in the future, and our syllabus is findable online on Zenodo. So thank you all for today, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks a lot, Miriam, for your time and for your presentation. It's a very good presentation about. I like the example about the sheep, just like gathering and engaging all the communities, local communities, so you can all work together. It's something very good. I have recently noticed the local community here in Egypt, the open science community here in Egypt, and it is, I think, one of your efforts in order to create new communities, even in the different regions. Something very good. The second point is to create a norm, just like a track, in order to just like practicing, in order to make sure that the ongoing process is ongoing and evolving until it becomes norm, just like other standards. So the open science standard itself become dominant in this side. And the last point is the importance of the community, just like a block of the pyramid. So it is a
Yeah.
very important block in order to complete the entire pyramid of the open science transition. So thanks a lot for your presentation. And I encourage the attendees, if they have any questions, please add your questions to the Q&A section.
And thank you so much for your positive response, Ahmed, and for everyone who says something in the webinar chat. I'm always really happy to hear that my message comes through and that it's really informative. Thanks a lot for that.
Thanks a lot for your time. So seems that we don't have questions. So I believe that the presentation was crystal clear. That's why there is no questions, I believe. But if we have received any questions, we will forward it to Dr. Mariam in order to be answered, whether at the end of these sessions or afterwards. We will now move to the third presentation.
Can I say one last thing?
Sure.
Specifically for the people in this region, if you are in Egypt as you are, or you are in Saudi Arabia or in Iraq, please connect to your local community because they're doing really great work. They're really active and they have a lot of sessions, not only in English, but also in Arabic. So they can actually probably help you even better than I can do from an international level. So keep in contact with them as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So, thanks a lot, Dr. Miriam. We will now move to presentation 3, community building and engagement in open science across Africa and the Arab states. It will be presented by Dr. Raed Al-Zubi and Dr. Nicole Mulako. Dr. Raed Al-Zubi from Jordan University of Science and Technology. He serves as Library Director at Jordan University of Science and Technology, JUST. More than 30 years of management and technical experience have been accumulated, with over 50 years devoted to academic library services. Responsibilities have included oversight of operation, staff coordination, IT infrastructure, digital resources, budgeting, and policy development. Dr. Nicole Malako, Training Center in Communication Africa, TCC Africa. She's an open science advocate and programs officer for library and consortia at the Training Center in Communication, TCC Africa, capacity building organization based at the University of Nairobi. She holds a degree in international relations and diplomacy and is dedicated to advancing the visibility of African research through open access and open science initiatives. At TCC Africa, Nicole plays a key role in strengthening library consortia networks, supporting research infrastructure, and contributing to data-driven projects such as the Africa BID Alliance. Her work has been instrumental in regional efforts to promote open access policies and improve scholarly communication across institutions in Africa. Passionate about equitable access to knowledge, Nicole champions inclusive participation in open science and actively fosters partnerships that elevate African research within the global scientific community. Dr. Nicole, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible enough for everyone.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Let me share my screen first. Is it visible?
Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you. So thank you so much for this opportunity and thank you for everyone who's joining us today for this session. As has been shared, my name is Nicole Mulako and I'm the program officer in charge of library and consortia from the Training Center in Communication. And my presentation is going to echo also what the previous speaker has said, also on the importance of building open science communities. And I'm particularly going to focus on community building and engagement in open science across Africa and across the Arab states, because community building and engagement are two key aspects that are at the heart of advancing open science, especially in regions or in continents where we are striving to increase our global research visibility. So before I start, let me first start by explaining who we are as a center. The Training Center in Communication is a capacity building trust that's based at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. And we were established in 2006, focusing on the goal of building equity in higher education through capacity building, through capacity strengthening to improve research output and visibility in scholarly and science communication. As a center, we run 3 core programs, which is number 1, the Open Science and Advocacy Program, which I'm going to explain more in my next slides. Then we have our Open Infrastructure Program, which is the Africa PAD Alliance. The Africa PAD Alliance secures Africa's innovation, indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage by providing open, reliable infrastructure that supports digitization, access and visibility of research, patents, and traditional knowledge. So that's about the Africa PAD Alliance, which had been talked about in detail by my colleague, Mr. Nicholas, in the previous session. And our last focal program as a center is a higher education stakeholder engagement program, which drives partnerships to develop innovative and sustainable solutions in higher education. So our mission, our objectives, and our values are at the core of what we do as a center and guide our every step in interaction with various stakeholders from the region, the continent at large, and from the global audience space as well. So in order to talk more about community building and engagement, I'm going to first show you what we've done as a center, what we've been able to accomplish through our Advancing Open Science in Africa program, which was established in 2021 through our partnership with the Public Library of Science, PLOS, in short. The goal of our partnership was to amplify the representation of African research in the global scholarly publishing scope. So by us partnering with PLOS, we've been able to do various open science engagements across the continent, interacting with regional organizations, continental organizations, all bring them all together in the space of open science, listening to them, what are their needs, what are their interests, and coming and helping them and guiding them in coming up with solutions that best fit their interests and needs. Because every country, every region, despite us having shared common problems in research feasibility and output accessibility, we all have different ways in how we can integrate different solutions into our systems and how best they can benefit us. So that is what we've been doing with the Public Library of Science since 2021. So this image is just a nutshell of what we've been able to do across the region. And let me start by first highlighting what we've been able to do in East Africa with our partnership with the East African Science and Technology Commission, EASTECO, through our partnership that began in 2022. So with our partnership with the Commission is part of the East Africa Community, which is a regional organization for the East Africa community side. And with that, we have been able to successfully, through our partnership with them, integrate open science principles into the EAC, the East Africa Community STI policy of 2023 to 2033. So that means from a regional scope, we've been able to bring together ministers and stakeholders from the regions of East Africa together, and they all collectively agreed the importance of having open science embedded into the STI policy, the regional STI policy. With that mandate, still working with the Commission, we are working with various stakeholders in each of the East African countries, taking them through the open science principles as stated in the EAC STI policy, and working with them in coming up with solutions that best fit their needs and interests. So for example, in Tanzania, we've all, from the countries we've worked with, we've done the dialogues. And let me give you an example of what we've been able to accomplish in Tanzania. We did the dialogue in Tanzania in 2023. And after the dialogue, one key output was that they needed a solution to come up to in order to strengthen the quality of the journals that are coming out of Tanzania, the publications that are coming out of Tanzania. So what did the government do through with the cooperation of COSTECH, which is the Science and Technology Commission in Tanzania? They came up with the National Journal Guidelines, which have open science principles embedded in it. And what we've been able to do as a result of that is we did a workshop, I think if I'm not wrong, in August. We did a workshop with the journal editors from Tanzania, journal editors from the universities, from publishing enterprises in Tanzania, to take them through, to just show them this is what the government has come up with and how easily it fits to your needs and interests as publishers, as journal editors in Tanzania, and also taking them through practical ways in how they can improve the qualities of their journals by meeting international standards. So that's just a snippet of what we've been able to do. This is through engagement from the dialogue all the way to the guidelines, and we'll still continue working with the Commission and the country at large to go beyond the guidelines and other activities that they will propose that needs to be done. Also, let me also highlight what we've done with Uganda. Uganda requested that they wanted two separate meetings. One, they needed us first to identify who are the open science stakeholders in the country, because everyone ends up doing their own set of activities, but it's important for us to come together and sit down in one table space and talk about open science in one space. So with the Uganda National Council of Science and Technology, we came up with a national survey to understand who are the open science stakeholders in Uganda, what are they doing, and what have they accomplished. And once that was done, we brought them together in a meeting, which was done in September, and talked to them, and they shared their aspect of open science and how they feel open science can best fit into the Uganda research and technology system. So through that meeting, now we were able to understand who the stakeholders are, what have they doing, what do they think should be done on the way forward for the country. And this conversation will influence the Ministry of Education and Sports in coming up with various ways in how they can embed open science principles into a set of either existing policies or acts, or if they feel that the topic of open science requires its own strategy, then that can be done. So that's just a snippet of the engagement we've done with East Africa and what we did with IASTECO on the regional policy, on the regional STA policy that has open science, inspired our partners in West Africa, that is ECOWAS, to also think about the same as they are amending the regional STA policy, which is called ECOPOST. They felt that since East Africa has done this, the Commission has been able to successfully do this. Why can't we do the same for our ECOPOST, our regional policy, our regional SCI policy in West Africa? So we've been in conversations with them, and we did a regional dialogue in 2024, and now we are still in conversations with ECOWAS to strengthen open science awareness across the West African member states of ECOWAS, and also do the same as what we've done in East Africa, because each country will present their own way they feel that this is what they need based on their needs and priorities that they have. We also did a regional dialogue in South Africa with the partnership of the University of Pretoria in 2023, and we are still exploring that region through the universities in South Africa and also the other organizations and government stakeholders in Southern Africa. And also our new partnership, which began this year, is with ASREN, and I'm going to expound more in my next slide on why we partnered together and the activity we did in July of this year of 2025. So our partnership with ASREN, we give it a name as Advancing Open Sciences in Northern Africa. So we partnered with ASREN this year in February of 2025. And the goal of this partnership was to strengthen research visibility, capacity building, and policy integration across the North African region. So with that, through the help of ASREN, we're targeting North African states by meeting their various stakeholders, primarily through their research councils, identifying the challenges, or if there are existing policies that they think this needs to be done, we support them, we work with them on open science awareness and advocacy first, and then build a sequence of roadmap of activities that best fit to their needs. So one key activity that we've been able to accomplish after our partnership this year in February was the Morocco Open Science Dialogue, which was done at the 16th AAU Quadrennial General Conference in July of 2025. And one key output that came out of there was the need for stakeholders to work together as a whole and better their strategies, because Morocco successfully came up with the 2024 National Strategy of Open Science. And as stakeholders there at the meeting, we all collectively agreed that we will provide support and help the National Council of Research and Technology in Morocco, as they are mandated and tasked with the mandate of ensuring that the strategy is implemented as is stated within the policy. So that is one key output from Morocco, and we are continuing conversations with the council and help them if they come up with roadmap of activities that will help in the implementation of the strategy and beyond, any other activity that still goes in line with building up with what they already have. So with all that I have explained, I'm trying to bring out the aspect of community building and engagement. You've been able to see what we've been able to do across the region, across the continent, who we have engaged across the continent, and what it has resulted in. So now what I'm going to explain to you in a nutshell is just understanding, even as what my previous speaker highlighted, the importance of community building. Why is it important to have open science communities, and why is engagement also important at the same time? So community building and engagement are basically two sides of the same coin in advancing open science. Engagement brings people together, bringing people together with shared goals and challenges. By sitting down together, we're able to understand and realize that you're not the only one facing the same challenge. You're not the only one facing that challenge, but there's someone else. You're from Kenya, you're facing a challenge in the research ecosystem, and you talk to your fellow stakeholder in Northern Africa, and you realize they're facing the same challenge as you are facing. So by engaging people together, we're able to bring everyone into one space and share what are their goals, what are their aspirations, what do they think should be done to better their research and innovation ecosystem. And these interactions, this engagement, this consistent interaction creates communities built on trust and shared understanding. Because once we understand that we are all thinking along the same lines of space, given the same challenges, then we're able to form communities. We're able to sit down and say, okay, this is what we are facing as a community. What should be the collective action that we can take to better open science, to better the inclusion of open science principles into our ecosystem? Once established, these communities sustain engagement by offering platforms for collaboration, peer learning, and advocacy. This makes open science practical and not just a theory that we keep talking about the open science, but now it turns it into a practical aspect by us engaging and building communities. Strong communities amplify collective action, ensuring that open science principles translate into real-world impact, from shaping national policies to improving research practices. So now that we've understood the importance of engagement and community building, how can we build an open science community? How can we develop a community of people with shared challenges, shared goals, and bring them into one space and work together collectively and not in silos? Because the one key problem that we have seen in our interactions with various stakeholders is stakeholders working in silos. And then you find that they end up doing the same, we're all doing the same thing, but just in different times, on different spaces, different opportunities. And we're all within the same country, the same region. So it's important for us to work together to avoid duplication of efforts, because we end up realizing that this person did what we did, but the outputs, it's not really creating the impact that it's supposed to create. So what happens if we work together? Maybe we could better the impact of what we are doing in relation to open science. So how do we build an open science community? Once stakeholders are brought together, they begin forming networks that go beyond single projects. They go beyond the single challenges that you're facing, because we now realize that, yes, you're facing the same challenges, but each and everyone will bring a different set of solution into the table. So once we as a community, we sit down and discuss each of the solutions that everyone has and realize this is how best we can put the solution into one aspect and how can it benefit all of us. Even if we are from different countries or different regional territories, how can we implement these ideas or these strategies to benefit all of us as a community? These networks that are formed once stakeholders come together encourage collaboration across borders, institutions, and disciplines. The goal is to ensure solutions are relevant, shaped by African realities and priorities. By connecting researchers, policymakers, and institutions, these networks become the foundation of sustainable open science ecosystem. This is also just an echo of what my previous speaker said on why it's important to build open science communities. Various stakeholders build open science communities in different ways, but the approach is relatively the same because we all go through the same cycle of how to build that community. You have to engage with people so that you're able to identify what they need. Once you've engaged together, you're able to build a network. A network meaning that you're able to connect each other and share different ideas. Once you're able to share different ideas, you're able to collectively realize this idea would best suit all of us and would all benefit. And once collectively shared or we've collectively collaborate on implementing initiatives or projects all related to open science, we're able to maintain and develop strong partnerships because of the whole aspect of community building. So as I wind up why is engagement important? Engagement is the foundation of open science. It moves a concept beyond policy into real practice. By bringing together researchers, policymakers, funders, and communities, engagement creates collaboration and shared ownership of research outputs. That's collaboration. Then we're building trust. When research processes are open and participatory, the scientific community and the public are more confident in the outcomes. The whole aspect of open science is we need to create a transparent research ecosystem, and with transparency and accountability, still in a safe way, not just sharing output. There's a safe, practical way to how open science creates a transparent research ecosystem. We're able to trust each other through what we've been able to implement in relation to open science. Equally important, engagement promotes inclusivity, ensures that voices from across Africa and the global south are part of global research conversations. So by engaging with each other, we are bringing together voices from different parts of the continent, of the region, into one system, and we're able to share our ideas into the global ecosystems and spaces. We're able to share, okay, this is what we are facing as a global south. How can we collaborate with the global north and make this a better approach for us? Then the other aspect of why engagement is important is because it supports policy alignment. Through engagement, open science practices are better aligned into national and regional goals, ensuring policies are not imported but co-created. By aligning policies in the sense that, for example, like what we did with the ESC STI policy, it wasn't really enough to really address the problems that were being faced regionally in the space of research visibility and accessibility. Hence the inclusion of open science principles into the STI policy. Now the implementation of the policy is more effective because it really addresses what is happening in the ground and the reality of what's being faced in the East African region. The same can apply to governments. For example, in Uganda, the Ministry of Education is, through the meetings that we did with the open science stakeholders and the expected dialogue that we are supposed to do around probably next year, all those conversations will influence the Ministry of Education and supposed to rethink the various STA policies or acts that exist and how best to amend them in a way that addresses the needs and the interests of Ugandan researchers, through inclusion of open science principles, either into existing acts or policies or coming up with a new strategy specifically on the area of open science and including some aspects of STI in it at the same time. And then finally, sustained engagements foster long-term partnership, supporting capacity building and the sustainability of open science ecosystem across the regions. So it's basically what I've been explaining throughout my session is that by fostering sustainability, we are creating, long-term partnerships, not short-term partnerships in the sense that we've solved our problem now. The problems in the research and innovation system are recurring problems. So meaning that the more we'll keep engaging more and more because the problems keep recurring and we have to come up with new solutions every day or better the solutions that we already have just to keep up with the revolutionary change of what we face in the global system, because in the global system, every day things are changing. So it doesn't mean that we have to necessarily sit down and come up with something new, but we can better what we already have. So that's the conclusion of my presentation, and my call to stakeholders and to you as participants strong call is to collaborate together, sit down in one room and share with each other. These are the challenges we are facing. How can we come up and help one another? Because if we work in silos, then we're not really benefiting each other, but we are duplicating what someone else is doing and we're not creating the impact that we're supposed to create. So thank you once again to the organizers and Mr. Ahmed for giving me an opportunity, and look forward to the questions and interacting with you for more in future sessions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nicole. It's a very interesting presentation that highlighted the efforts have been made to support building engagement in Africa, the Arab states. It was very interesting to highlight the efforts in North, South, East, and West, something very good. And it's very important also to highlight what are the reasons behind the need for this engagement. So the recommendations or the highlights at the end of the presentation is something very good to highlight these strengths. So we keep going. Collaboration and engaging all together is a very vital um, plugstone to the community development. So I would like to ask our attendees if they have any questions for Dr. Nicole Mulako. If you have any question, please add it to the Q&A section. Okay, until receiving some of the questions so far, we have gone through three presentations. The first presentation was titled Advancing Open Science Communities in South Asian through Regional Collaboration and Diplomacy. And it has highlighted the some of the challenges and the issues in the publication community, along with some recommendation. And it was something good to share the Diamond Open Access event by the end of the this presentation. It will be something good to attend. The next presentation was titled "The Power of Open Science Communities," and it has highlighted the importance of uh, collecting all the local open science communities all together on the heart of one association in order to foster the message and the strategy of the open science. And the third presentation, titled Community Building and Engagement in Open Science Across Africa and the Arab States, has highlighted the importance of building and build the community building and the engagement in our area. The efforts has been made already, and the key factors in order to keep going in this track. Uh, Unfortunately, the fourth presentation, titled Advancing Open Science in the Middle East, Iran's Role in Strengthening Scientific Diplomacy, by Dr. Farshid Danish. He's not able to join us. So we have to end our session at this point. Thanks a lot for all attendees and for all our speakers today for their um, efforts, for their time, and for their insights. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. If you have any support, any assistance, thanks a lot, and have a nice evening.